What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt Deville with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Carl the Cobra Froch. Get this. Carl Froch says undefeated Hall of Fame boxer was dull and boring. Former super middleweight world champion Carl Froch has had a dig at former foe, calling his fights dull and boring. Froch is a British sporting legend and recently rewarded for his stellar fighting career by being inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. In his heyday, he beat guys like George Groves, Arthur Abraham, and Jermaine Taylor. Froch defeated every opponent except the person that he is accusing to be dull and boring. Andre Ward beat him by unanimous decision in the final of the tournament, and due to the convincing nature of the win, the two never ran it back before the Son of God moved up to champion light heavyweight. Speaking about possible guests to appear on his weekly Froch on Fighting YouTube show, the Brit didn't think Ward would be entertaining enough, just like his fighting days. Get this. He said, I wouldn't invite Andre Ward. He's not a bad broadcaster, but he used to fight a bit boring. He'd put a glass eye to sleep. Performances were dull, let's be honest. He knew how to win. He was talented, etc. He got a win over me. Fair play, talented kid. Would I invite him to the show? Probably not, but he'd probably reject the offer anyway. Those are the words of Carl the Cobra Froch. And let me counterpunch. Dude, bitter, and more bitterness. That's the only thing that you can chop up with Carl. Now, Carl was a warrior. He was very talented. He went for the kill. He had good instincts. He knew what to do, when to do it. Okay. And Carl Froch is a guy that he's not accustomed to losing anything. You can tell he's very competitive. And when Carl, and a person that competitive on a crazy scale like he is, when he doesn't get his way, you can see the bitterness coming through and through. Okay. Prime example. Anthony Joshua. He talks about Anthony Joshua as though Anthony Joshua gave him a defeat. But Anthony Joshua, in fact, defeated him, but outside the ring, inside the ring with someone else, as opposed to numbers. Okay. He did 70,000 at Wembley. Carl Froch did, but then Anthony did 80,000. Right? Ever since then, you've seen his attitude change towards Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean? Because he likes to bring that up. I did so many thousand and 70,000 or whatever in Wembley. And then when it was broken, I think that would caused him the bitterness. The same with Andre Ward. He thinks that Andre Ward is bold and enduring and can put a glass eye to sleep. Well, he beats you. So if he was that boring, your job is to stop a boring fighter from doing what he does. That's what I don't understand about fighters. Now, he gave him fair play to be talented, but at what point do you call a talented fighter boring? You know what I mean? It's like I don't think Andre Ward's boring at all. Now, he doesn't have knockout power, but just because you don't have knockout power doesn't mean you're boring. Just because you don't have a high knockout percentage doesn't take you to be a boring sap in the ring. Right? I mean, one of his greatest fights was against Kovalev, where Kovalev was undefeated. Now, I think Kovalev pulled the first fight out from the knockdown, but Andre Ward made him quit. He made him bend over, and he stopped fighting, and Tony Weeks waved it off because he refused to fight. Right? And Andre Ward showed him, hey, I took the fight to the boogeyman. Right? And that's exactly what happened. So in this case, Carl Froch is saying Andre Ward is boring and dull. That's just his way of saying I'm bitter because of the loss. You know what I mean? You can't help but to think that, because it's like, okay, the one man that whooped you, that beat you, was Jermaine Taylor boring? Was Arthur Abraham boring? Those guys weren't boring because you got the best of them. You could figure them out. You know, you got their timing down. You knew what type of fighter they was. But Andre Ward fought on the inside and boxed you, and you forgot how to box. See, a lot of times these guys are ready to brawl, but then they're unable to box and brawl. In a boxing match, sometimes a fight breaks out. But you have to remember what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a boxing match. Okay? Hit without being hit. And I'm sorry that Carl thinks that way. But to go to that bitter magnitude, oh, I won't even bring him on my show. Bro, you guys are both fucking retired. You know what I mean? And you saying, oh, I wouldn't even bring him on. He's dull and boring. I'm like, yeah, because you don't want him to recall all the things that he did to you better than you in that fight that you guys had. You wouldn't dare bring that up because you knew your ego once again would be affected. Counterpunch. You know, so for Carl Froch to say something bad about Andre Ward, the guy that beat him, right, in a tournament for all the marbles, shows a lot. It just shows that he's bitter. And a guy like Carl Froch, with the ego he has, he will always be bigger or bitter to that degree. You know what I mean? And I think if he's going to grow as a person, which he won't, because sometimes people are going to be themselves. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, people are going to be themselves. They're going to be who they are. And that's Carl Froch. Carl Froch will forever be bitter towards that fight. And Andre Ward will always be the victor, right? If he wanted that fight so bad, he could have chased him up to light heavy. But did he do that? No. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I think Andre Ward was just a much talented fighter than Carl Froch. As good as he was, as you know, the legend he is in the UK, he still is not better than Andre Ward. And I think that will always bother him to this day. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Carl Froch saying that he wouldn't invite Andre Ward to his show because he's simply dull and boring. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.